Hey everyone, I'm Connor.
And I'm Jeff.
And this is Discography Draft. Running out.
I got a good one in there. It was good. It's
I'm
tasty.
glad. Well, hey everyone, we have an exhibition episode of sorts. Matt and I had a scheduling conflict. Matt's out of town, and I'm about to go out of town. So we have my good pal Jeff filling in for Matt.
Cheers.
And Jeff is dressed in his bachelor party attire, which is the mood of all moods.
The party never ends, ladies and gentlemen. The party never ends.
No, it does not. And just a little, we can talk about the bachelor party.
Can we?
Just in part. So we went to St. Augustine, and Jeff wore this, which is a full jumpsuit or tracksuit, a la The Gentleman, a Guy Ritchie film. And just St. Augustine has never seen.
They weren't ready. They were not ready.
No. It was so funny. We went to this place called Prohibition Kitchen for lunch, and then like 10 hours later, we're walking by that place again, and the general manager is outside, and he sees us coming. He's just like, Jeff! And it's like, we had really no interaction with the man while we were eating lunch, but somehow he got a hold of your name.
He knew who we were. We made a pretty lasting impression. He was actually the person I checked in with at the front desk. So there was a little bit of a relationship there, but I'm glad that it has persisted since then. The addendum to this is I went on my honeymoon in St. Augustine and took my wife at the time to Prohibition Kitchen, and we got our drinks comped by
The GM.
the GM.
Whose name escapes you.
I think it's Jeremy, but I want to make
Jeremy
sure.
has spoken.
Yeah, I believe it is. And so, yeah, just great place if you ever find yourself in St. Augustine, Prohibition Kitchen. Get yourself a tangerine dream.
Oh,
Best
boy.
cocktail on the menu for sure.
For sure. And honestly, shout out to Kelly, our waitress at the time. Just redeemed the name Kelly for all Kellys in the serving industry. If you know, you know. And Kelly, if you're watching, and we know you are, I hope you enjoyed that bottle of wine that we brought you. So let's get into this little episode. So we're going to be, well, first of all, I mean, before we even get into the episode, hey, it's a Jeff episode, so we have different sponsors for this one. Ordinarily, we're talking about Hypervolt and Bunch of Crunch and all them. But they wanted to take a week off so we could have more Jeff-centric sponsors, which are, number one, Krispy Kreme. For those of you who don't know, we're in the midst of Chalktoberfest, and by the time this is posted, I think that deal will probably have ended. But right now they're offering, if you buy a dozen glazed donuts, or just a dozen donuts, you get a dozen chocolate glazed for $1.
Which is just an absolute heist at a Krispy Kreme. I mean, chocolate iced is, in my opinion, right below the original glazed. I mean, as far as just signature donut. So, yes. I mean, this is probably the greatest deal that I've ever taken part of at Krispy Kreme, because chocolate iced is my favorite donut.
Mm-hmm. So we got that going on, and then we also have these little Oxhorn mugs, which were cheers. Ooh. Oh boy. What's the name of this place? Norse Trading Company?
Yeah, Norse Tradesman.
Norse Tradesman. These were our bachelor gifts from Jeff for the wedding. Hell of a horn, I'll tell you that much.
Great horn.
Great horn. I'm pretty sure these also appear in Game of Thrones. Matt and I have actually been starting to rewatch Game of Thrones and come across King Robert and the Lannisters drinking out of these. So, hey, get you a horn. And right now it's filled with whole milk because
of course it is.
Because we're knocking on 30, but you wouldn't know it.
Amen to that.
So,
true elixir of the gods is whole milk. But these horns will also drink your classic brews and meads and even a barley wine or two if you really want to go wild. But whole milk is right at home in these puppies.
Indeed it is. So on this week's episode, we're going to be talking about Linkin Park, and specifically their Hybrid Theory and Meteora albums. And for those of you who haven't seen Discography Draft before, how this works is Matt, who's usually here, but today Jeff, will be discussing the albums and artists that have had a lasting impact on our lives. And then we talk about 2 albums in particular from one artist, throw all those songs into a draft pool, and we each draft 10 songs from that pool. And I mean, Hybrid Theory and Meteora are the albums from Linkin Park that warrant discussion, wouldn't you say?
I would wholeheartedly agree. I mean, in my personal opinion, and this, of course, this is just one man talking. I mean, Linkin Park is one of those bands that just like started off high, went higher, and then I don't know. I feel like they ended up plateauing for me near like the 2010s. Like Hybrid Theory, Meteora, both great albums, and then by the time we,
when they went to the Transformers era of Linkin Park, Minutes to Midnight still had some good songs.
Yeah, like
Bleed It Out was awesome.
Yeah, great song on Minutes to Midnight. But after that, I think, and honestly, you kind of see this as a bigger trend with the new metal genre in general, as everyone started kind of changing up their sound to kind of catch a different wave of metal subgenres, which honestly is a topic I just feel underqualified to talk about because there is some purists in the world when it comes to metal subgenres that I can't possibly get into the nuance of all that. But yeah, definitely I think of the bands in that beginning of the 2000s, like Linkin Park to me was top dog when compared to, you know, POD and some of these other alternative metal bands that really popped off during that time. Limp Bizkit,
Papa Roach,
Korn.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yes, we all listen to them, but to me, like, Linkin Park has the staying power. Like, I can listen to Hybrid Theory today.
Yes.
And I still think it's one of the best alternative rock albums.
Yeah.
You can find. Meteora, too.
And the thing with Linkin Park is they've outright said, like, we are not a new metal band, but it's like, to an extent, I sort of see where they're coming from because they do have like a rap element in there with a DJ with using turntables, and it's like they kind of are their own thing. They're a blend of a lot of different genres, so I don't think they want to be classified solely as new metal, and that's probably right.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair to say. It's just, and again, that almost gets into like what I'm talking about with this, like, how do you classify such an act? And it really does get difficult because I'm like, you've got turntables, you've got a DJ, you've got Mike Shinoda and Chester Bennington on like keyboard. 4 different vocal styles. Like, yeah, trying to like put them in a box was extremely difficult, and maybe is why they ended up mellowing out into a more mainstream sound over the years, is because what they were doing at their beginning was truly, I think, something special, something that isn't super common. Even in that era, you don't find it as much.
And Mike Shinoda has talked about this, where there's a YouTube video of him reacting to like Gen Z kids reacting to old Linkin Park, and he's talked about like their style kind of changed over time, and like a lot of people don't really like it anymore because like they've tried to sort of adapt to how that new metal sound sort of changed over time instead of just sticking with how it used to be, because they felt like, all right, well, they don't really feel like it's more like they're stuck in like the early 2000s if they kept how they were doing it. So they just felt like, we needed to change it up a little bit. And I mean, I think it was, I get the idea, especially from like a musical artist standpoint, where they're probably trying to challenge themselves too to see what they could also come up with. But I don't know. Just for me, when I listen to Linkin Park, it's Hybrid Theory, Meteora, a couple Minutes to Midnight songs, and like maybe a single off of the newer Linkin Park music. But these are the unassailable albums in my mind.
Absolutely. You can't talk about Linkin Park without mentioning either one heavily. I mean, I just feel like this is where And I mean, I'll admit to my own nostalgia. Like this was when I was growing up. Was like right at the turn of the 2000s. Hybrid Theory was actually the first album I bought with my own money, where I went down to the music store and was like, I heard probably In the End. It was probably In the End or One Step
MTV.
Closer. Yeah. And I was just like, I need more of whatever this is. And you know, we didn't have an iPod. You couldn't just buy one track. So I went and got the whole album, and that was like in my CD player all through middle school.
Right.
And like well into high school. Even when MP3s were popping off, I'm like, Hybrid Theory, mainstay of my and I still listen to it today. Like that's the thing, is like for me, like in the like certain songs on here, In the End, Crawling, and in Meteora, like Somewhere I Belong. Like there's so many of those songs where I'm like, these have staying power with me personally.
Yeah, and to me, I think Linkin Park is just synonymous with the music video era of rock in that early 2000s, because like the In the End music video, which is when you're watching it now, it's like, what even is this? Because it just looks so heavily green screened, which is what it is, but it's such an iconic music video, and I think probably In the End is what everyone started with Linkin Park, and it's an unassailable song. So hey, pop quiz, Jeff, do you remember, or do you even know, the two names that Linkin Park went by before they settled on Linkin Park?
Oh, this is a good question. One of them was Hybrid Theory.
That's right.
So that ended up being the album name on the debut.
Yeah, Hybrid Theory was like 99. They called themselves Hybrid Theory.
Yeah, very short time right before they like went official with their debut album. And I do remember there being one before that. It's like one where it's a little odd, but I don't remember exactly what it is.
Zero with an X.
X-E-R-O.
So
like Xerox.
Yeah, Xerox. Yeah, that's actually... So Mike Shinoda had started Zero, and then Chester Bennington auditioned for it and got that role as the lead vocalist, and then it just kind of became Linkin Park after that. But on the topic of Chester Bennington,
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Chester. This was... This was one of those where, like, I remember where I was when this happened kind of things. When I found out that he had hung himself, so July 20th, 2017, I was a few months removed from like college in general. I was working, and it was a Thursday, and I think I found out like right towards the end of work, and then on the drive home, I was just listening to I think I was listening to Sirius XM at the time, because my truck came with it free for a few months.
Got to take advantage.
And I think they were talking about Chester Bennington on the show I was listening to on the drive home. And this was like, Chester was one of those guys who, he was such like, I mean, he went through a ton of dark stuff particularly early on in his life.
I mean, even just looking at the albums we're looking at and the lyrical content, I'm like, the subjects he talks about, it's just like, how could you not have these emotions that are tied to these events that he's talking about?
And some of it, I think Crawling was about, he was like sexually abused when he was 7 to 13 years old, and by a male friend, I think it was at the time. And it was one of those things where when it happened, I think he talked about it, but it was hard for him to like tell anyone about it, because he didn't want people to think that like he might be gay or all stuff like that, which is like back then was a faux pas, and that people weren't really understanding of it back in the day, which would have been like 1983 or something like that. And so all that kind of stuff, which was just, and then he really got, addicted to drugs, and so there's just a lot of stuff that went on early in his life that I think like parental divorce is in there. Like, I mean, so much of this about like his parents arguing. There's like things like that, like tucked into the lyrics, and yeah, just definitely has like strong, unfortunately, like strong traumatic bonds, which is like, you never want to think great art has to have something like to spawn it like that, but like the way that he was able
to pull on those experiences to create some of the music he did is pretty incredible.
Yeah. And coincidentally, like his dad was a police detective who worked on child sexual abuse cases.
Wow.
And so I think he ended up telling his abuser's identity to his dad, but ultimately decided that he didn't really want to, that Chester decided, well, actually, I don't know if it was Chester or his dad who decided not to pursue it because they had found out that the guy who abused Chester was also a victim of sexual abuse himself. So it just kind of like, it was this whole compounding thing that was just like horrible.
Yeah, it's just awful.
Yeah, and Chester's parents divorced when he was 11, and there was abuse and, like you were talking about, all that stuff that he wanted to run away, and he said he wanted to kill people, and it was bad.
So we know where that runaway ended up. Was that track number 7?
Something like that, yeah. But Chester was, I mean, for him, he was not a big guy at all, but had such a powerful voice, and he was really bullied a lot when he was a kid too, because he was so small and skinny and kind of like weird looking at the time. And but as I was listening to his music, I like when he screams, there's so much, it's so raw and just believable that when he's screaming, you really feel that, oh, there's actually like real pain behind the scream, and it's not like an act. And he had just one of these 3-octave powerful voices that you don't really find too often. And it sucked when he took his own life. And I think part of this had to do with the fact that he was really good friends with Chris Cornell. And in fact, Chester
was like right around the same time. Was that like a year before?
Oh, it was 2 months after.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so Chris Cornell hung himself, and then 2 months later, Chester hung himself on Chris Cornell's birthday. But Chester was also the godfather of Chris's son.
Wow, I didn't realize they were that close.
Yeah, they're really close. And so I think, and when they kind of, I guess the police looked at the scene after Chester hung himself, they didn't find like any drugs lying around or anything like that, and there was no suicide note. So like, we'll ultimately never know for sure, but just the circumstances surrounding it. I mean, he did this performance with Linkin Park. I think it was like right after Chris Cornell killed himself. Then they were on Jimmy Kimmel Live, and they were gonna do Heavy, I think it was the song that they were going to perform, but then they ultimately decided that to do One More Light in honor of Chris Cornell. And I was watching that performance yesterday, and kind of towards the end, Chester just like, he starts to kind of get choked up, and he's struggling to really finish it because Chris meant so much to him. So
yeah, I don't blame him in those circumstances at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do remember both those happening. For some reason, I thought they were further apart than they were. But yeah, it was really just like a bang bang, especially for just like the heavy alternative rock scene. I mean, to lose Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington, same sort of circumstances. And yeah, it's funny. Well, not funny, but just ironic. I remember, I didn't know we were going to do this at the time, but I remember like Facebook has those memories that pop up. And I remember I wrote this like very long post after Chester Bennington died of just like not only how sad it was that he's gone, but just how prevalent like suicide has really felt like it's always been there, but we talk about it now, and it's like it's important that we talk about it because it's just ultimately so tragic. But yeah, I remember seeing that post of like, please reach out to somebody, just something to reiterate now, like obviously a heavy topic, but one that you can't really get around talking about. Linkin Park, especially today, is just like, mental health, like processing trauma, like, certainly don't want anyone to be in that situation to begin with, but just like, how do you seek help and find ways to resolve some of it is just so essential. So,
and Chester was like, you just listen to and look up the lyrics in like any Linkin Park song, and you could tell like, oh, he's freaking you could almost sort of see this coming, just of the pain that he was dealing with. But when it actually happened, was like, man, dude. And in part, it's like there's this level of selfishness when like, oh, no, we're not going to have like Linkin Park anymore.
At least not in the iteration of what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's ultimately like, I don't know, this dude took his own life, and that's horrible. And he just meant a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, but I also think it's, and again, you ride this fine line of like, wow, like what he was able to turn it into from like the lyrical aspects of, especially I think Hybrid Theory to me is the rawest album that they had. Like it just musically like was there, but just a little bit raw. And you see that transition in Meteora to being like more refined, but like just the rawness of his emotion and the production and just like how it made you feel. Like, and for me, like, thankfully not going through anything like what Chester was going through as a kid, but in those difficult years of middle and high school of like finding yourself, feeling left out, like all the social anxieties and everything else, bullying, like I think at some level almost everyone experiences that. And it's like, to me, that's what made the music so relatable, is he was just like, I'm not going to sugarcoat any of this. This is my life, and here it is on a track. And like it was that relatability more than anything that kind of like sticks with you. And I think why it's such has such a strong pull is like when I was going through that difficult time of growing up in adolescence, it's like Linkin Park spoke to that. I think I hate to say it, especially as men. I don't know. Like I think we have a certain relationship with rage that's different.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Like I think just having a way to like put words to it and feel it through music was helpful. And yeah, I think Hybrid Theory was kind of that album for me of like, if I need to like feel those emotions and process them, I would oftentimes find myself listening to tracks off that album.
Yeah. And well, I guess one final note on Chester before we move on to the albums. Do you know the 3 other bands that he was a part of?
Oh, I do not.
All right. So he started with Grey Days, which I think was before Linkin Park. He was on this band. Then Dead by Sunrise, which was around 2005-ish. So it was around the time that Mike Shinoda was doing Fort Minor.
Oh,
Chester
I remember that.
Also doing Dead by Sunrise. I think they had like one album.
Okay.
And
like an alternate project that he was a part of, basically.
And then also Stone Temple Pilots.
Good old STP, man.
He was...
Who doesn't love Stone Temple Pilots?
Yeah, he was the lead singer. So they parted ways with Scott Weiland, who was their
I remember
lead singer for a long time. And then I guess in 2013, they recruited Chester, to replace Weiland. And he was with them for until 2015.
Wow,
and I
missed that entirely.
As did I. But something that's really cool is Chester, when he's has credited Stone Temple Pilots as being like one of his favorite bands when he was a kid and one of his inspirations. And he said like one of his dreams as a kid was to be a part of Stone Temple Pilots, and he ended up being the lead vocalist. Is like ridiculous.
Right on.
So good for him, and rest in peace, Chester.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the albums. Hybrid Theory was released. Hey, we're coming up on the 21st anniversary of it, October 24th, 2000. Let's see. Oh, so where were you at in your life, October 24th, 2000?
Well, right before the towers fell. Second grade.
Yeah.
It's funny. I remember feeling like it was coming out closer to when I was in middle school. Like that's when I feel like I really caught on to it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I definitely would have been like second, third grade in 2000. So very young. I don't think I was cognizant of the debut until much later when I was getting more into alternative rock, especially. Yeah, middle school was kind of when I made that. Fifth grade really on was when I got deeper into kind of alt rock and heavy metal and that sort of thing. But yeah, I was a youngin' when they dropped it.
Oh yeah, so I would have been in third grade at the time, and I feel like the first time I ever heard about Linkin Park, was in third grade. So it was I remember this when it was coming out, and a couple of my friends talking about Linkin Park, and I was like, what the heck is Linkin Park? But this was...
And the spelling always got me.
Yes.
Like the Linkin.
Yes.
I always would think like Li, like Lincoln,
Yeah,
like
Abraham.
the president.
Yes.
Which Matt, of course, would have something to say about that. But
I'm sure he would. So I just remember in the end, it was on, like, you couldn't escape it on MTV. This is really like for, I think in my house, we had on Saturdays, like MTV was just kind of on Saturday mornings, just listening to music videos, and so that in the end was really the first taste of Linkin Park for me. So let's see. They had, oh, by the way, Hybrid Theory, it is certified diamond.
yeah, that's not easy to do.
No, not at all. Over 30 million worldwide sales of this album. And
Just what a way to start the new millennium right there. Rock and roll ain't dead. I mean, obviously very alternative, but one thing I saw on here was that it was the best-selling debut album for a rock band since Appetite for Destruction from Guns N' Roses, which it hadn't been beat for like 13 years.
Yep.
Like, what an incredible way to start your career. That's pretty impressive.
The best-selling rock album of this century, and at the Grammys, it won Best Hard Rock Performance for Crawling, which is interesting because I mean, we'll get into the draft in a little bit, but I wouldn't put Crawling as like the best song on this album. It's interesting that I wonder if the Grammys classified In the End as a hard rock, because it's like is, but it isn't.
Well, yeah, I always find the Grammys to be difficult. Like, I
Yes.
wrestle with the just everything the Grammys is.
Yes.
Like, is it artistic success? Is it commercial success? What, and it's interesting when you get to like best hard rock performance versus best hard rock song. Or, it's just like the performance aspect itself. I've never fully understood that Grammy personally.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's back, 2011, 2012, like Foo Fighters had a moment like that where they had Wasting Light had just come out, and that album was getting a lot of play. It was kind of their big comeback album, I felt like, in their career, because it's like, oh, Foo Fighters, are they going to do anything new or creative? And it's like, okay, Wasting Light, thank God. And what was the song? They had like a heavy metal performance Grammy that they won for. I can't remember the name of it right now. It's killing me. I brought it up and it's on the tip of my tongue. But it's basically the hardest hitting song. White Limo. White Limo's the song.
Oh, okay.
And I remember it won that Grammy, and all of the metal purists were like, that's not even real. Like, that's not heavy metal. It was just, it's such an interesting dynamic, especially in the rock world where we now have so many subgenres. Like, the purity of like, is this heavy metal? Why is this a performance and not just a song? Like, why do you nominate one for one and not the other? I don't know. That was interesting. But to your point, yeah, Crawling, I don't know if it's the best song on the album. To me, though, it is up there. Like, I'm not going to or show you my full hand of draft picks, but for Hybrid Theory, Crawling to me is pretty high up on the list.
And I think Chester has talked about in the past of Crawling was one of his least favorite songs to perform because it's all like one note. It's just crawling in my skin, these wounds they will not heal. So he's not able to really have fun with the song because it's all just kind of like
I feel like some of the verses are a little bit more melodic, but yeah.
Well, yeah, there's something. Yeah. So something Matt and I do is I ask you to tell me what you think Metacritic gave this album on a score
Metacritic.
from up to 100 being the highest that
that's our authoritative source is Metacritic, and that's what always out of 100, right?
Yes.
Gosh. And that's an aggregate of just user reviews?
It's something like that. Yeah. Well, there's
critic. It's hard to get high.
They have like critics, and they also have users, and I think this might be an aggregate of the critics score. So what do you think they got?
I want to be optimistic. Just like knowing how strongly influential this album was, I want to say it's like got to be at least like an 86 on Metacritic or something. I could see it being pulled down by some bad reviews, but
Metacritic gave it a 61.
Jeez. Jeez, that is a hit. What's the reasoning behind that?
I don't know.
Can we pull some of these people? I'm like,
I'd have to pull it up. I'm just looking at just the general critical reception on Wikipedia.
I guess it's a debut. Debuts are always hard for people because it's like, oh, are these people legit? Are they not?
And it's new metal. I don't.
Yeah, it's hard to understand.
People don't even know what the heck's going on with this. But it also had like pretty good reviews from just critics, generally speaking. But Metacritic gave it a 61, which is a faux pas.
Yeah. Well, classically, Rolling Stone has it at like 2.5 stars here, which, come on, Rolling Stone. Get it together.
Let's see. Mike Ross of Jam praised the album as an effective fusion of hip hop and heavy metal music and deemed Linkin Park, quote, one of the finest new rap metal bands. Stephanie Dickinson of Pop Matters wrote they are a, quote, far more complex and talented group than the hard rock boy bands of late, and will continue to fascinate and challenge music's standard sounds. Which is, I mean, the foresight of Stephanie Dickinson on this. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's also funny to think about, like, yes, this is a band, and they're all men, but I've never heard boy band and Linkin Park in the same sentence.
They would not. I just feel like that's almost offensive to put them. Yeah, it's like, okay, we got Hanson on one side and Linkin Park on the other.
Right. And then some other people said that the band had given, quote, angst-ridden rock an effective electronic spin, and Hybrid Theory was, quote, destructive and angry, but always with a well-controlled melodic feeling over it. And what was this? The Village Voice's Robert Christgau gave the album a 2-star honorable mention rating and cited Paper Cut and Points of Authority as highlights. He quipped, quote, the men don't know what the angry boys understand.
That's a good word.
That's like a yearbook quote.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
So, all right. Well, that's Hybrid Theory.
You know what's interesting? They also dropped like the 20th anniversary.
It's so long.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, like the collection of it's like, I guess, like 10 records or something. I don't even know. I haven't.
There's like a DVD involved.
Yeah, there's like all this stuff, but like, I don't know if it's like the nostalgia kicked in for me. Like, I have not seen a bad review of people where it's like, yeah, this is pretty incredible what they've put out for the 20th anniversary. Just like all the behind the scenes stuff, all of the, added like rediscovered tracks that didn't make it and all that stuff, and probably way more than we can go in today. But just like, I was reading a couple reviews of that particular edition, and almost everyone's like, yeah, this is the album that defines Linkin Park in a lot of ways, and it's cool to see it get that treatment where you can understand more deeply like what went into making it and all that. Yeah,
and I think one final point for me was, I mean, I had heard In the End when it came out. It was huge. But really the rest of the album, I never owned this album. So I think that when I really started to give it a listen to was probably later in high school, when One Step Closer was on either Guitar Hero or Rock Band. I can't remember which one. And so I heard that one there, and I was like, oh, now we're in like the iTunes era, and we're also in the era where I figured out how to pirate music. Shout out to the Pirate Bay.
LimeWire.
Rest in peace. Oh, LimeWire. Oh, boy. Do you remember before that? No one seems to remember this. You remember Kazaa?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Are we allowed to say that?
Sure, why not?
Kazaa, and then, of course, the OG, Napster. We got a shout out to you.
Metallica got that, took umbrage with Napster.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't until I was in high school, so several years after Hybrid Theory came out, before I really like gave it a full listen to outside of just In the End. And it was one of those ones where I'm like, dang it, this one really, I wish I could have figured this out earlier on. But also at the same time, it came out when I was in 3rd grade. So there wasn't really like that angst, the sad boy element of my life yet, because I was 8.
It had not yet. You were unaware
yeah.
of the trauma.
And then high school came along and it's like, all right, I'm ready for it.
No, my journey was pretty similar. I think it was actually when Meteora dropped. I had a friend like in like 5th grade, which I think was like right on the money when it came out, who like exposed me to it. And of course, this is like competing interests of like pop rock, or like pop punk. You know, it's like the Green Days and all those sorts of things were in your mix at the time. Good Charlotte, I think, was big for me.
Oh yeah,
in my rotation.
Yeah.
But I think honestly, Meteora came out, and that was actually maybe what this friend used to like be like, oh, you should check out Linkin Park. And then I got back around. Like, I think I had heard like In the End and like a couple singles and stuff. But then it's like, this band seems really good. Like, let me actually like go get some of their stuff. And that's when I got Hybrid Theory and Meteora, and like actually was like, I'm actually a fan now.
Right. Yeah. So let's move on to Meteora. All right. So here's a little pop quiz for you. So we know Hybrid Theory is called Hybrid Theory because that's what Linkin Park used to go as. Do you know why they chose Meteora for the name of this album?
I have a faint idea. Doesn't it have something to do with the album art, or is that not correct?
What I'm reading here is that Meteora is taken from the Greek Orthodox monasteries originally bearing the name.
Oh, well, that's deeper than I would have imagined. I do know there's something about a collaboration with the artist that's actually doing the artwork.
Could be, yeah.
But yeah, I guess the name. So Greek Orthodox monasteries, huh?
That is so specific.
That's so very specific. But again, right in line with this band. I mean, talk about being outside the box.
Mm-hmm. And
not just a religious reference, a Greek Orthodox.
Yeah, and it's also one of those albums where, like, they literally on the album cover they list all of the tracks, which is fun because like you never see that anymore. That was such like a flash in the pan thing to do, and it's funny to look back and be like, oh well, yeah, there's all the tracks right there on the cover. So Meteora came out March 25th, 2003. Where were you at in your life?
5th grade. Yeah, this was that friend. I swear, like, this has got to be the connection. I had a buddy, Sam. He was like the only hard rock guy I knew, and you know, at that point in time, like, who's listening to hard rock in 5th grade unless your dad was like a Guns N' Roses fan? Like, that was not the household I came out of. Mm-hmm. We were definitely more like Glenn Miller and big band or big band sort of sounds throughout the house growing up. Like, I had a very old school musical taste, like up until I got into those social groups that were like, you got to listen to this, you got to listen to this, you got to listen to this. That really expanded my mind. But yeah, my buddy Sam, I think, literally bought this album, was like, you got to check out Linkin Park, man. And I'm like, cool. Mm-hmm. And that started the journey.
Yeah. So for me, March 25th, 2003 would have been the end of 5th grade for me. But I associate Meteora with like 6th grade, with when it really became prevalent, when I really started listening to some of the songs. To me, the one that stood out the most, going back to the whole music video part of this, was Breaking the Habit, because this was like an animated music video, which seemed to play all the time. And
did that have like Eastern influence, like anime sort of vibe to it? Yeah, like which of course they obviously have played around with that imagery a lot as a band.
Yep. It was like an anime music video. So that's Breaking the Habit's the one that stood out the most to me for this album, but I understand that like Numb is probably the bigger song.
Got Jay-Z's attention. That's pretty good.
That is honest. So I went back and listened to Collision Course a few days ago. I mean, just 6 songs, and it's not even like they just took what was already recorded and just kind of spliced the stuff together. They literally met with Jay-Z and re-recorded the whole thing. Was like, and they did, and it's seemingly, and it could have been like all in one take, because as you listen to the album, it's like it just kind of transitions fluidly into the next song and the next song. So if that was true that they did this all in like one sitting, that would have been incredible.
Well, that would be incredible for any band, for any recording in any studio ever.
Yes.
That's not a live album. That would be pretty impressive.
Right. And something so this Linkin Park recorded this album from April to December of 2002. So that's like an 8-month project for them. And something like, as you look at Linkin Park albums, it goes, Hybrid Theory came out October 2000. Meteora was March of 2003. Minutes to Midnight was May of 2007. So it's like it's taking them a couple of years in between albums before they're really recording another one. So they're not they're certainly not a band that tries to come up with an album every year and rushes it and doesn't give you good music. That's why
I think that's a great release. Like, you're giving the people what they want, but 3 to 4 years I feel like is a good time for like an album to really soak in one album.
Yes.
Like, have it on rotation for a bit, tour it. I mean, that's another big thing that we don't talk about. You know, it's hard to write if you're on the road, and I mean they're at their zenith right now. Of course, they've had a lot of peaks and valleys because they've been one of those really long longevity bands. But you know, you have to imagine you work that touring schedule in there. Like, how often are we actually getting into writing sessions, getting into the studio, getting new material together? Like, it's definitely a process. And I think for rock also, you have so many elements going on, and especially when you mix in the rap element too, it's like to get those to gel the way that they gel on a Linkin Park album has got to take some time.
Yes. But also in between Hybrid Theory and Meteor, they came out with Reanimation, which was...
Do we need to talk about it?
No, I'll tell you what. The crawling remix on that, where it's like kind of slowed down, is really good. The rest of it, it is what it is.
It's always struck as odd. I owned it. I bought it. Again, had like Gundam album art.
Yeah.
It was like this, which was also a big influence in my adolescence. Japanese anime Toonami.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Cartoon Network Toonami. But yeah, I remember, I think I saw the album and I was like, I like Linkin Park. This is still a Linkin Park thing. Let me check it out. And then I was just like, this sounds so different.
Yeah. It was like just kind of an experimental album, it seems like. Reanimation. July 30th, 2002. So they recorded while they were touring Hybrid Theory.
Yeah. Well, and so much of it was collaborations and remixes. Like, I wonder if it was really just featuring those artists that kind of took their, original batch of songs and, again, reanimated. They call it Reanimation, remixed it, kind of put their own spin on it. But, yeah, none of them were really anything I would write home about, which is kind of unfortunate, because then you see like what a true collaboration like Numb Encore becomes. Yeah. Like when you have like the synthesis of the two artists, like that is what made it pretty incredible.
But a little nugget about that one, Reanimation, it is to date the 5th best-selling remix album of all time.
Well, that tells you something.
How many remix albums?
I was going to say, where's this list? I actually want to see how many albums are strictly remix albums, because that would be...
Okay, so here's the top 5. We'll kind of down reverse order. Number 5 is Reanimation by Linkin Park. Number 4 is J to the L-O, the remixes by Jennifer Lopez. There's...
Remixing what? Herself?
It's unclear. Number 3 is Love by the Beatles, released in 2006.
The Beatles always play.
Yeah. Number 2, You Can Dance by Madonna. And then number 1, Blood on the Dance Floor, History in the Mix by Michael Jackson.
That all makes sense. But it's also hilarious to see Linkin Park at number 5 behind Jennifer Lopez, the Beatles, Madonna.
And MJ.
And MJ. Yeah, it's like, all right, 5 of the biggest names of all time and the Linkin Park. So, hey, good on you guys. Linkin Park. If you guys watch this, I'm sure you will.
Yeah, we know you're watching.
Yeah.
So there were 5 singles off of Meteora. You had Somewhere I Belong, Faint, Numb, From the Inside, and Breaking the Habit. Let's see. It sold 27 million copies worldwide. It's 7 times platinum. One of the best-selling albums of the 21st century, up there with Hybrid Theory. Billboard, they ranked it number 36 on the top 200 albums of the 2000s, and
very respectable.
And the song Session was nominated for Best Rock Instrumental Performance at the Grammys.
Which just tells you where the rock instrumentalists were at the time, because it's a cool track, no doubt, but it's just so odd.
It's also like the Grammys is funny because they'll just have Best Rock Instrumental Performance. It's so specific. It's like, do you need all
how many nominees can you really drag around?
How long do you want your show to be?
Yeah.
But something about Hybrid Theory and Meteora is that these are both like 36-minute albums.
Oh yeah, they're short and
so
sweet.
short.
Yeah, I mean the tracks are. It's rare for them to have a track longer than like 3 minutes. I feel like.
Yes.
Like even some of the best one, like Faint, is like what 2 minutes and 40 seconds, something.
Yeah.
Like it's not long, but it goes hard, and that's all that I want.
That's right. All right, so here we are, Metacritic. What do you think they gave it?
Okay. Obviously,
Hybrid Theory got 61.
Yeah, Hybrid Theory had 61. But I'm also thinking, okay, here's my logic. They've now proven themselves with Hybrid Theory.
Okay.
Meteora is a much more polished album. I think we can
Yes.
They dip their toes into mainstream acceptability with Meteora. Like I feel like this is when people outside of hard rock heard of Linkin Park with Numb, Faint, Somewhere I Belong. Like those made pretty solid radio play. All that being said, I'm going to say maybe we're up to 68.
62.
God, really?
One point better than Hybrid Theory.
Metacritic, you are a harsh mistress.
Yeah, she's a fickle one.
Which I guess just tells you, I don't know if people just don't know what to do with Linkin Park's sound in that case. Because to me, it's like, again, we see rankings like 26th greatest rock album of the like top 200 of Billboard, and it's like, a Diamond album, like Meteora's 7 times platinum.
Yep.
Like, and it's just like, it's a little better than half of our rating.
But this something I brought up with Matt on the previous episode was to me it's unclear
how they rate it
and when they rate it. So
that is also important to know.
Did they rate this like right when the album came out, and this was just their initial thought about it, and they don't go back and change it once it's rated, and that's it? Or because it's just like, in what world is Hybrid Theory 61 and Meteora 62? Like, even by virtue of that, like, I get Meteora's a more polished sound, but Hybrid Theory is just better, and we all know it. But to say Meteora is 1 point better, it's like, what do you?
It's interesting. I've actually, there's some people, but like all opinions, I know a lot of folks that are big on Meteora.
I love it. It's awesome.
Well, but as they think it might be better than Hybrid Theory.
It can't be though.
Well, we'll see where we end up in the draft. Who thinks? Yeah. We'll know who thinks what.
But I will say that as I went through and created the big board of this, I did have a lot of Meteora songs that took me by surprise as to like where I was ranking them with respect to,
like, you hadn't listened to it in 10 years and you're like, dang, Figure 09 actually goes pretty hard.
Yeah. So let's see. Entertainment Weekly said that Meteora's, quote, radio friendly perfection. Dot Music described it as, quote, guaranteed source of ubiquitous radio hits. And ubiquitous. Rolling Stone said the band, quote, squeezed the last remaining life out of this nearly extinct formula.
Such a Rolling Stone thing to say.
How high society does Rolling Stone think they are?
They've been that way. They trashed Zeppelin. Let's be real. Like, how much do we really put stock in Rolling Stone when it's like Led Zeppelin drops and they're like, it's garbage? And of course, different writers, different editors throughout the years, but they've always had this like love-hate relationship with, like, I don't know, new paths in musical creativity.
Yeah. They also, a couple more accolades. So I mentioned Session at the Grammys. Somewhere I Belong won Best Rock Video at the 2003 MTV VMAs. And Breaking the Habit was nominated for Best Rock Video for the 2004 VMAs. Didn't win, but did win for MTV Viewer's Choice.
There you go. Let the people speak.
Breaking the Habit, fantastic video. I'm always just blown away by that, like, kind of anime thing, especially when it's like not an anime show, but it's just, this rock band has this anime music video, and it's that, just the talent that it takes to do that is so, it's, and the level of patience involved with it too, it has to be, it's incredible to me.
Yeah. And especially if you look at what other music videos at the time were. Yeah. It's just way more out there and way more creative than
Creed music videos.
We're on a mountaintop.
Yeah,
There's thunder. I am Christ. Like, isn't there one where, oh my gosh, whatever.
With arms wide open?
Yeah, he's like literally floating above a crowd. The Creed music video. Yeah.
I am.
Like in a crucifix. Like, it's so over the top.
Okay.
But yeah, that's an aside. We're here to talk about Linkin Park.
That's right. Well, all right. So I think that's about it for the 2 albums. So let's get into the draft. So how we do this is it's a snake draft. So we'll flip a coin. Jeff, since you're the guest, you can do the honors of calling the toss. And then if you win it, that means you can choose to have the first pick or the second and third pick. And it's a snake draft. So if you chose 1, then you get 1, I get 2, 3, you get 4, 5, etc. So here we go. Give it a call.
I'll go with heads.
All right. It is. Well, so that goes to show you, Matt has not won a coin toss yet.
Sorry about it, Matt.
Yeah. And let the record show he still hasn't. So
gotta up your drip game.
Yes. So, all right. So that means you get to choose. Would you like the first pick or the second and third picks?
I'm going to take the first pick because I think
would
we all
expect
know
you
where
to.
this is going.
I know. I'm really bummed. It's like, all right, cool. I already lost.
We'll see. Honestly, I think there's more depth here than we're giving it credit for. Like,
Yeah.
these could be some really interesting lists.
All right. So let the record show you're on the clock.
Okay. Now, are you recording for both of us, or do I have to record my own?
I'll record for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Well, the pick is in.
Is it?
Yeah, Jeff has made a decision, and it's. Can I get in the end off of Hybrid Theory, please?
You can.
Is this what you expected?
Yeah. Dang it. I didn't see this coming. I'm taken by surprise. All right. That is the number 1 choice. It doesn't matter who you do this with. It's in the end is number 1. So with the number 2 pick, I'll take Numb off of Meteora.
Good one. That would have. Well done.
And now's when the draft gets interesting. Because it's like,
we got the 2 number 1s off the table easily. Yeah.
Yes.
Now you're splitting hairs between some of these. What would you, Matt, describe them? Role players on the albums?
Yeah.
So these are our all-stars out there.
Yeah. So the 2 superstars have been drafted. LeBron and KD have been drafted. And now we're getting into like, all right, James Harden and Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis. So it's like there's still some star players involved. We're not quite into like the bench yet.
Yeah.
But there are some starters. So with the third pick, I'll take One Step Closer off of Hybrid Theory.
Dang it. That was also a good one. All right, so I get 4 and 5 here?
Correct.
Okay. Let me see where I want to head with this. Okay. I think, so I might do something a little interesting here. I'm going to take Breaking the Habit.
Dang it.
Off Meteora. I might go double Meteora and also take Faint.
Dang it. That's my order. I had number 1 in the end, 2 Numb, 3 One Step Closer, 4 Faint, 5 Breaking the Habit.
And this is where it becomes interesting is like Meteora, I think, had some of that depth where like that like right under the all-star ranking, there are like these really good songs.
Yes.
That it's like people don't always think about, but if you listen to it again, you don't turn it off. You're like, this is a great song.
Uh-huh.
And both of those definitely fit there for me.
Okay. Hang on. Let's see.
Wrecked his whole lineup right there.
It's so frustrating because I knew it. I was like, I wonder if Breaking the Habit will fall to 6. No. All right, with the 6th pick, I'll take Paper Cut off of Hybrid Theory.
Good choice.
And then with the 7th pick, I'll take Crawling off of Hybrid Theory.
Yeah, that sadly one of my personal faves. So I'm sad to see it go.
All right, 8th pick is yours.
I think I'm going to take Points of Authority off
right.
Hybrid Theory.
I had that as number 9.
Yeah. Wait, did you grab Somewhere I Belong?
I did not.
Put that one on me.
Dang it, that's what I had at 8. F this, dude.
But it goes to show, like, I think the quality of these songs, like, I'm sure there's some Linkin Park purists, if they catch this episode, are going to be like, you're missing out on greatness with like some of these others. But like, I'm thinking of like, hey, I want to win this win this competition.
Yes. All right. Yeah, this is good. So with the 10th pick, I'll take From the Inside off of Meteora, which, as I've gone through and listened to it, this song has grown on me the most, and might be a running gun for my favorite song that isn't In the End.
Okay.
I love the chorus of this. So that's a 10th pick. With the 11th pick, I'll take A Place for My Head off of Hybrid Theory.
Good choice. Yeah, now we're getting into these interesting in the weeds
now
ones.
The role players are.
Yeah, now we're looking for the JJ Redick's. I mean, outside 3 shooter right here. Okay, I'm gonna, a little bit outside the normal. Someone's got to take Session right now. I'm just kidding.
No one has to take.
I'm gonna take Figure 09 off of Meteora.
Okay. That was an interesting pick. I had that as number 19.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So similar. That one's grown on me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know necessarily why or when, but actually when I was thinking about coming onto this, I re-listened to both albums, and I was like, I listened to that like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, this one's really jiving with me for some reason.
Yeah.
All right. Can I sneak peek at what's been taken? Oh, you actually have your lineup on there.
How dare you?
No. I was more or less trying to remember what's been taken.
Okay, so we've taken In the End, Numb, One Step Closer, Faint, Breaking the Habit, Paper Cut, Crawling, Somewhere I Belong, Points of Authority, From the Inside, A Place for My Head, and Figure 09.
Okay, yeah. Then I'm also going to take Cure for the Itch.
Oh, a little instrumental? I had that as 25. Ooh, Jeff. You're getting cheeky. All right. Well, so that was the 13th pick. All right, with the 14th pick, I'll take Lying From You off of Meteora.
Mm.
And then
good choice.
With the 15th pick, I'll take Runaway off of Hybrid Theory.
That was going to be my next. I should have taken that instead of Cure for the Itch. That was a blunder. Oh, boy.
All right, 16th pick is yours.
Someone already snagged With You, right?
No.
Theory. I'll take that.
All right. I had that as number 15.
And what pick was that?
That was the 16th pick.
Okay. That's fair. Where to go next? What about Place for My Head? Did you grab that?
Yeah.
You grabbed that? Okay.
Yeah. So you still have Easier to Run, Forgotten, Nobody's Listening, Hit the Floor, Pushing Me Away, High Voltage, My December, By Myself, Don't Stay, and Session are available.
I'll take By Myself off Hybrid Theory.
Okay. I had that at 17. Okay, so then with the 18th pick, I'll take Don't Stay off of Meteora.
That was going to be my next one, so good choice.
And then with my final pick, which is the 19th pick, I'll take My December off of the bonus edition of Hybrid Theory.
I didn't know My December was actually in the running, so...
Oh, well.
No, that's okay.
Well, how dare you?
Didn't know we were doing bonus tracks here.
Yes.
But no, that's fair. It's good track. Honestly, one of the more interesting ones on Reanimation is the My December remix. It's a totally ethereal experience. I have no idea what to do with it. So this is my final pick, right? This is 20, so I got first. 20. I get 20. Do I do it? You know what? I'm going to take Session because then I'll have 2 instrumentals on mine, and this one won a Grammy. So
yeah, you could. You can't say that.
I'm gonna get that mainstream appeal that the Grammys loves.
Yeah, Grammys. If you're watching them,
Okay, that's a little bit of a gag pick, but I just after learning it won a Grammy, I feel like I have to have it.
That's fair. So let's go through our selections. I guess I'll read yours off.
Yeah, just give us.
So yours were In the End, Breaking the Habit, Faint, Points of Authority, Somewhere I Belong, Figure 09, Cure for the Itch, With You, By Myself, and Session. You started giggling at Cure for the Itch.
It's the wild card in the lineup for sure.
Yeah, it was. All right. So mine are Numb, One Step Closer, Paper Cut, Crawling, From the Inside, A Place for My Head, Lying from You, Run Away, Don't Stay, and My December.
Honestly, I feel like that's a pretty. They're definitely different.
Yes.
But both are really strong in their own ways.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
That sounds like such a throwaway, like, oh, they could both win line. But I'm actually very curious to see like what people vote for, because it's two very similar but divergent veins in the Linkin Park discography.
Yes. Yeah. So, well, that's the draft. What do you think, just like in a vacuum, if you're looking at a list of all these song titles and you know nothing about any of them, what do you think is the most interesting song title?
Most interesting song title, and I don't know anything about the band.
Yeah.
Like, if someone were to just like come across it, it'd be
it's like which one of these 26 songs do you want to listen to, and all you can see is the song title?
Honestly, I'm drawn to Breaking the Habit.
It's a good one.
Like,
it's like, what habit?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, what are we talking about? What habit is it? And it's got like breaking is such a strong like visual of like, okay, I'm quitting something. Like,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, Breaking the Habit. I feel like I would just be drawn to. Numb was my other thought.
Yeah. For me, I think Somewhere I Belong is a really good one. It's very honest, and I think part of that is like there's a level of that I feel like in my life of I kind of bounced around from friend group to friend group growing up because I went to the same school from 3rd grade through high school, and it seems like as I reflect on that now that like the friendships I had in elementary school, a lot of them ended up going to different middle schools. So then it's like I had to remake some friends in middle school, and then some of them went to different high schools. So then it's like in high school, I didn't really have like a place, or there wasn't really like something I had like in common with a lot of kids other than like I like to play video games. So it seemed like so reflecting on it, it seemed like the kids who were really popular senior year of high school were the ones who like happened to be there in like 2nd and 3rd grade and were like, they formed that friendship group like 10 years prior, and it just kind of carried through. And it's like they've all been friends that entire time, and then they didn't have to like jump to a different friend group or whatever. So it seemed like that's kind of what happened. And then when I went to college, like in crew, like I started in a community group that my freshman year was predominantly juniors and seniors. So then after my sophomore year, that whole CG was like totally gone except for basically me. So then it's like I had to try and recruit guys to join that one while I was a junior, and I recruited a bunch of older guys. So like that one kind of lasted for like a year. Jumped to another community group and another community, and I was there.
A lot of jumping,
and I was there through grad school. So I was there 6.5 years. So it's weird to think back on it and be like, all right, yeah, I was there for so long that I now like in the end, that I now like don't really know anyone here. Because it's like I've seen the world pass me by, and all my friends have passed away, and now it's just like these younger people, and so Somewhere I Belong kind of relates to, I feel like, my life, and then so what do you think is the best beat on all these albums?
Oh, great question.
I'll tell you one that gets me fired up.
Yeah, lead off. I want to hear what you say.
Paper Cut.
Really?
Just starts up. It's like. It's just the opening song of Hybrid Theory.
Yeah.
Just really sets the tone.
Yeah. Is it weird to say Cure for the End? We're talking instrumentals.
No, not at all.
It is an interesting track, though. I feel like people don't give it enough credit at all.
Yeah,
I remember
they
when I used
let
to
the
listen
DJ
to Hybrid,
cook.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I was like for some reason I feel like it's a nostalgic soft spot because when I used to listen to the album front to back, just have it in my CD player or whatever. Like I remember when that would come on, it was just a refreshing change of pace where it's just like look away, like a lot of scratching, a lot of like it's got some heavy like drops in there in a weird like not how we would describe it in this new EDM world, but like I don't know if I have the words for it, but dun, 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 it's like got that really like heavy in the middle of it, just piece. I think it's fun, but yeah, no, I'm gonna stick with that. I like that song.
All right,
it's in my lineup. I gotta put some respect on its name and make sure that people actually check it out.
Drafted it. Which of the songs from these two albums has most grown on you since the first time you heard it? I answered this earlier, but From the Inside for me.
Yeah, From the Inside is a good one. Figure 09 has been big lately for whatever reason since I started listening to this again in preparation for this, just kind of like running them through. I've liked that one. And I will also say off Hybrid Theory, I'll give you one for both. Runaway was one that I didn't always like as much, and for some reason as I've grown older I want to run away more. But no, it's just as responsibility has increased now.
Yes.
I feel like the song goes hard. And, like especially like right after Crawling, which is such an interesting track, I feel like maybe it was almost too jarring of a switch because it's like I want to run away, like never say goodbye. I don't know. I feel like I didn't want to believe the track lyrics when I was young. I'm like, I come from a good home. I don't want to run away.
Yeah.
But yeah, for some reason, I can just feel that one more now that I'm like, this is a good track.
Okay. So what do you think is the most overrated and underrated song from these?
Overrated on these albums, I'm almost having a hard time saying what's overrated on these albums.
Do you want to know my answer for most overrated?
Yeah, give it to me.
There isn't one.
Honestly, though, I'm like, I feel like the ones that have respect have it for a reason.
Yes.
And like when we got deeper into the draft, those that are like role players, everyone's like, yeah, it's a good song, but no one's like hyping up.
I have a hard time associating Linkin Park with overrated in any way, especially when it's these two albums, because it's like, all right, well, so you could default by saying In the End, which has like over 1 billion Spotify streams, but it's like, well, is that the default answer because but it's like the song is freaking awesome. There's no way it's overrated.
Well, that's what honestly, culture has gotten this way, and it frustrates me. It's like if something pops off, people want to be contrarian and be like, it's not as good as people say. Yeah. But I'm like, some of these things pop off, and they are as good. Like, there's a reason it's super popular. Like, there is, like, I think some mainstream manufacturing of, like, oh, what's going to get the most hits and all that. Like, yeah, that happens. But I'm like, sometimes things pop off for good reason, and they're actually as good as people say they are. And like you said, Linkin Park is just hard. I think it's more like, I've seen people that will diss it because it's not their cup of tea, and that's fine. Like, you could think like, oh, it's this bastardization between heavy metal and rap, and like, it's like, if you're a purist of either of those, Linkin Park kind of sits in this weird middle. But to say it's overrated, I mean, maybe Numb, but I'm like, it's so good. Like, how can I call it overrated? You know? But I'm like, I have to think of the ones that people are talking about regularly, and those are the ones that come to mind. Yeah,
and I think with these two, it's what I mean. The two big commercial songs are In the End and Numb, and neither I think are overrated.
No, they played well for the era they were, especially for the era they were in.
Yes.
Like, sometimes we look back, like I look back on Linkin Park with joy, whereas I look back on like Creed, and I'm like. Like, what were we thinking?
Where am I whoop on?
Yeah, like you listen to those songs ironically now, whereas when I tune into Hybrid Theory or Meteora, I'm still in it. Like, I'm like, this still hits the same chords it did in 2000, and it's relevant. Like, there's a reason Hybrid Theory got a 20th anniversary album.
Yep.
Like, there's reasons for these things. It's not like, oh, we're just hyping it up because we're mega fans, and I won't even go as far as saying I'm a mega fan of Linkin
Yeah,
Park.
me
They have
neither.
just always been a mainstay in my playlists. Like I can't seem to get rid of it. Like I just moved houses, and Linkin Park for me is like that's a box I just can't throw out. Like I'm gonna keep it with. It's been 20 years, but I'm gonna hold on to this sound because this is like a part of my growing up and maturing. But it's also still quality music.
Yeah. What about most underrated?
Ooh. It's hard to say any of the singles because I feel like they got pretty good like play. Do you have one that's underrated in your mind?
I mean, From the Inside is a single, but I think it's
Underrated.
freaking awesome.
That's true. Like I don't think people would remember that as a single as much, and it really is a good song.
Mm-hmm.
It was the fourth single, so yeah, it was later on in the radio rounds, back when people listened to radio. You know, honestly, that was probably what got me on the Linkin Park. WJRR 1011, Orlando's rock station.
Oh yeah.
Which has either gotten better or worse depending on your opinion in recent years. But is it weird to say Faint might be underrated? I love that song.
I think it's the...
And I feel like it was big when the album came out, but I feel like it hasn't kept the same appeal over time. But I'm like, I still listen to it pretty regularly.
Yeah, let me see here. So Faint has about 300 million Spotify streams, which is, I think, number 4 out of all these songs.
So it's still popular. Maybe I was wrong.
It is, but I mean, compared to Numb has 911 million, and then In the End has 1.09 billion.
That's respect on its name right there.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think Faint's an acceptable answer. Is there a lyric that most stands out to you out of all these?
The whole bridge from In the End. Like when when you just get when you're back to the piano melody and then you just get into the whole bridge is just like, and then you just come back strong with the screaming and like that to me is the highlight of the song. Like so much of it's good, but I'm like, that's when I just like, I feel the most, I'm engaged in it. That's when I just get lost in that song.
So that would that be your put it in my ears moment, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's the moment during this during either of the albums where it just sends you into a state of euphoria.
Yes, 1,000%.
Yes.
Especially when it transitions from like the spoken word kind of, there's still melody to it, but
yes.
I put my trust in, like he does it soft, and then he does it like
I put my trust.
Like to me, that's just like, oh, take me to the mountaintop right now, like pushed as far as I can go. Like it's just raw, and that's what I love about Hybrid Theory is it's just this raw. Like it's not necessarily like flowery, like it's not lyrically deep in a sense of like diction. It's just like, here's my emotions. Like I put my trust in you. I pushed as far as I can go. Like
I tried so hard and got so far.
Yeah, it's just like the song is just like, the song is the human condition, right? I mean,
yes.
Like wrapped up in like 3 minutes.
Yes. So for my put it in the ears moment, it's Breaking the Habit. Like I think it's the last chorus. Or just, well, I mean, in any chorus, he goes like, I'm breaking the habit, and I'm breaking the habit. That one, because it just takes me back to watching that music video over and over again in 6th grade, and I like that very specific where he's just elongating breaking and habit really gets me. But best lyric, I think, is from Somewhere I Belong. It's honestly the opening verse, kind of leading up to the chorus where they go, there's something inside me that pulls beneath the surface, consuming, confusing. This lack of self-control I fear is never ending, controlling. I can't seem to find myself again. My walls are closing in. Without a sense of confidence, I'm convinced that there's just too much pressure to take. I felt this way before, so insecure.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh.
That's Crawling though, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that is Crawling.
Okay.
Yeah, not Somewhere I Belong. But
yeah, no, 100%. I agree with that. to a T. Like, that was the appeal to that song to me when I first listened to it, because it does have this really long, softer intro. Yes. Before we get to just the absolute mayhem of the chorus. But it's just like, that one definitely has stuck with me. And the way he delivers it too, it's almost whispering, like it's like this confidential thing
that pulls beneath the surface, crawling.
It's incredible. And that's one of the dynamics they do really well, is blending when Chester's having that softer melodic, tone, and then going super loud, super heavy on the chorus, which, I mean, is just a tried and true, like, rock dynamic. And they do it so well. And then you mix in bars from Mike Shinoda, and you have something very unique.
Yeah.
Which I think is why Linkin Park has stood the test of time, because it's like, who's doing what they do? Nobody.
Yep. That's right. But, yeah, and so you might not know this, but talking about people who doing what they do, there's not a lot of it's just funny without Matt being here trying to do this. There's not a lot of people who could do what the Phoenix Suns did by getting to the NBA Finals. Did you know that there's we're talking about Linkin Park, and did you know that
together, man?
Did you know that Campaign played high school basketball in Memphis? Of the Campaign of the Phoenix Suns. Did you know that?
I didn't. Is this a fact from Matt?
This is a fact from life. He played high school basketball in Memphis, and so we're talking about Linkin Park and talking about somewhere the Phoenix Suns belong. They belong back in the NBA Finals. Am I right? Chester Bennington, being from Arizona, he really would. He actually was a big Phoenix Suns fan. So maybe that's a reference I should have went with. That's it. We're done.
Thanks for being with us, everybody.
Cut it out.